The millionaire could not stop laughing when the cleaning lady's daughter said she could speak 9 different languages. He threw out a challenge with a mocking voice. "If you can really speak 9 languages well, I will buy your mother a brand new house." Everyone in the room went quiet. They all thought it was just a child's silly dream. But when the little girl opened her mouth and started speaking, Richard Carter could not believe what he heard. Richard sat at the head of a long wooden table. Men and women in expensive suits sat around him, staring at charts on a big screen. The air in the meeting room felt cold, not just from the air conditioning, but from the stress that always filled the room when Richard was there. Everyone wanted to impress him. He was not just their boss. He was the youngest millionaire in their investment group. He owned many properties across the country. He had created a money app that changed the market. He was the kind of man who never said hello twice unless he thought you were useful. A man was talking about expanding business into South America. The room was silent. Then suddenly, the heavy wooden door opened with a loud creak. The sound shocked everyone inside. A woman in a green cleaning uniform walked in. Her hair was tied back quickly. She had drops of sweat on her face. Next to her stood a thin little girl with braided hair. She carried a backpack on her shoulders. Her eyes looked around the room without fear. The woman stopped moving when she saw the room was full of people. Her eyes went wide. She stood still, almost sorry that she had walked in. "Sorry. I thought the room was empty," she said quietly, holding the girl's hand tightly. Richard looked at her with surprise. Then he looked down at the girl. Without meaning to, he let out a sharp, proud laugh. It was not mean, but it showed he did not believe what he saw. "What is this? A field trip," he said, laughing. He looked at the investors, who forced fake smiles. The woman tried to step back out of the room, but Richard raised his hand. Wait. Who is she?" "She is my daughter," the woman said nervously, but she did not look down. "And why did you bring her here?" "She does not have school today, and I had no one to leave her with." Richard leaned back in his chair. He still had that mocking half-smile on his face. "And what is our cleaning expert's little girl's name?" "Ellie," the woman answered. But before she could say more, the girl stepped forward by herself. Her wide eyes were alert. She stood straight, which was unusual for someone her age. She did not hide. She was not afraid. "Ellie, huh?" Richard said thoughtfully. Then, almost as a joke, he added, "So, tell me, Ellie, are you learning how to clean offices too?" "No," Ellie said calmly. "I am learning languages." The test. The room filled with scattered laughter. No one expected such an answer. Richard made his eyes smaller. "Languages? How many?" "9, Ellie said without waiting. Now Richard's laughter burst out loud and real. He leaned back in his chair. He hit the table lightly with his hand. He looked around at the others. Some investors could not hold back their laughs either. One even said quietly, "Oh, please." 9, Richard repeated, like it was some kind of private joke. 9 languages. At 10 years old? The woman crossed her arms. Her nervousness was gone. Now she looked more angry than scared. "Yes, my daughter speaks 9 languages well. When she was 7, she already knew 5. Today, she speaks 9. And if you do not believe me, you can ask her anything you want." The silence was heavy. Some investors moved uncomfortably in their seats. No one knew what was stranger, what she claimed, or how sure the woman was. Richard did not stand up. He just leaned forward a little. His smile changed to one of interest. His voice was still mocking, but there was a new edge to it. "And if it is true, What do you want? Nothing. Just an apology. You laughed at her. The tension in the room was thick. Ellie stood in the same spot. Her eyes were steady and strong. Fine, Richard said. His voice suddenly changed. Now he sounded amused, almost entertained. Let us make this interesting. If your daughter really speaks 9 languages, I will raise your salary 10 times and buy you a house. Anywhere you want. I promise, right here in front of everyone. The woman froze. She did not seem to know whether to laugh, run, or accept. But before she could answer, Ellie took another step forward and spoke firmly. All right. One of the investors, a bald man in a blue tie, spoke with doubt. And how do we know she is not just saying memorized phrases? Ellie turned her eyes directly on him. You can ask me anything you want, in any of the 9 languages. Richard snapped his fingers. One of the assistants rushed out to get a laptop. Within minutes, they had an online translator open. The questions began in French. Ellie answered smoothly. Then in German. Again, perfect. Mandarin, Portuguese, Russian, Arabic, Japanese, Italian, and finally English. Her answers came without waiting, without stumbling. Her accent was sharp and correct. She did not sound like someone repeating words from videos. She spoke as if she was really thinking in each language. With every answer, the room grew quieter. The laughter was gone. The smirks faded. Finally, one of the investors stood up quickly. He held his phone to his ear and walked out of the room without a word. One of the investors sat frozen, not even blinking. Richard did not say a word for several minutes. He just stared at the little girl. Finally, he lowered his head, breathed deeply, and said quietly, "This cannot be real, Laura." Her mother did not smile. She only looked at him steadily. "I told you it was true," she replied. Richard pushed back his chair and stood. With his hands in his pockets, he walked slowly around the long table until he stopped right in front of Laura. He pulled out his phone and spoke firmly. "Make a new contract for Ms. Laura and call real estate. She needs a house." He hung up and looked around the room. "Meeting is over." Not a single word was spoken. One by one, the investors stood up. They gathered their papers in silence and left. Soon, only Richard, Laura, and Ellie remained. Richard looked at the girl again, this time with no trace of mockery. "Where did you learn all of that?" he asked. Ellie held his eyes with an expression no one expected from a child. "We do not have a TV at home, only books, and my mom taught me never to be afraid of asking questions." Richard gave a single nod. Without another word, he walked out of the meeting room and did not look back. Laura took a deep breath. She turned to her daughter. Ellie ran into her arms. "We did it, Mom. You were incredible, sweetheart." That day, something broke, and something new began. None of the 3 realized it yet. Everything had happened so quickly that neither Laura nor Ellie could understand what had just been set free. The very next morning, as Laura made breakfast in their small, old apartment, with cracked walls and no kitchen door, her phone would not stop buzzing. Notifications, calls, messages from unknown numbers poured in without stopping. Ellie was brushing her teeth when her mother shouted from the living room. Panic and excitement mixed in her voice. "Ellie, come here! You are on the internet!" Ellie rushed out and froze when she saw the screen. It was a video, recorded from one corner of the meeting room. The footage clearly showed Laura walking in, holding her daughter's hand. Richard's laughter could be heard in the background. Then, words appeared on screen as Ellie answered fluently in language after language. The video had already passed 500,000 views on TikTok. In less than 12 hours, it had spread everywhere. Within the hour, it was on every platform: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. Across every headline, bold phrases screamed, "The genius girl who silenced a millionaire." The millionaire's challenge that backfired. The cleaning lady's daughter who speaks 9 languages. In the comments, chaos raged. Some people were amazed, praising Ellie as if she were a national hero. Others doubted everything, claiming it was fake or that the voices had been dubbed. But the one phrase repeated more than any other was clear. The millionaire must keep his promise. At the office, everything was in chaos. Richard arrived with dark circles under his eyes. His face was hard and closed. He had not slept a single hour. Reporters crowded the lobby. Cameras flashed the moment he walked through the glass doors. On his desk, dozens of client emails were already waiting, all demanding answers. One of his executives rushed over as soon as he entered. "We have got the press outside. They are saying you humiliated an employee. Do you know who leaked the video?" "Looks like it was one of the investors. No one is sure who yet," the man replied nervously. Richard slammed his office door shut and turned on the television. Every channel was running the story. The footage played again and again, his face frozen in a mocking laugh while Ellie calmly spoke Russian. On an entertainment show, they were even comparing her to famous child prodigies. "She is only 10 years old and already fluent in 9 languages," the reporter said with excitement. "She studied on her own at home while her mother worked as a cleaner. This story is capturing the entire nation." Later that afternoon, a well-known influencer posted a video demanding that Richard honor his word. Others called him arrogant, a fraud, a man who thought he was above everyone else. Richard could not believe it. What had been, for him, nothing more than an awkward interruption in a meeting had spiraled completely out of control. That was when Regina, his business partner and ex-girlfriend, pushed open the door without knocking. "Have you seen it?" she asked sharply. "No," he muttered, though the TV was still running in the background. "Yes, you have seen it," she snapped. "You are coming off like a complete jerk." "And you think that is my fault?" Richard shot back. "You made the promise, did you not?" Richard dragged a hand down his face, exhausted. "I did not think that little girl was real." Regina gave him that look people wear when they want to say 1,000 things but choose to stay silent. "Well, she was real. And now you have got half the country waiting for you. What are you going to do?" Richard did not answer. He just stared at the screen. His expression was twisted somewhere between annoyance, disbelief, and pure exhaustion. He could not tell if he was angry, shocked, or simply drained. Meanwhile, over at the building where Laura worked, the story had taken on a life of its own. Everyone looked at her differently now. Some came over to congratulate her. Others simply watched from a distance, whispering, "How is that even possible?" The supervisor, who had barely noticed her before, suddenly offered her a cup of coffee. "Laura, your daughter is incredible. You must be so proud." "Thank you," Laura answered softly. But inside, she did not feel comfortable. She felt as though people were seeing her only for what had happened, not for who she truly was. Ellie, on the other hand, did not fully understand how big it all was. She just knew that people recognized her in the street. At the market, a woman asked for a photo. A teenager secretly filmed her as she walked into a store. Laura became more protective. She explained to her daughter that not everyone could be trusted. While many admired her, others could have bad intentions. Her phone would not stop ringing. Journalists, producers, television networks, everyone wanted an interview with Ellie. They offered shows, gifts, even scholarships at private schools. One of the most surprising calls came from a foreign university. They wanted to test her. But Laura turned everything down. She said she needed time to think. She would not expose her daughter without knowing exactly what was behind each offer. Ellie was happy, of course, but she was also tired. Suddenly, everyone wanted something from her. Online, the comments kept multiplying. The video passed 1 million views in a single day. The hashtag #GeniusEllie was trending everywhere. News outlets called her the little girl who put the rich in their place. That same afternoon, Richard called for a press conference. He wore his usual tailored suit, but his expression was serious. Cameras from every major network pointed at him. Richard stepped up to the microphone, took a deep breath, and said, "My name is Richard Carter. And yes, I am the man in that video. I laughed, I admit it. But I also made a promise, and I intend to keep it." The reporters erupted, shouting questions all at once. Richard raised his hand for silence. "Ms. Laura and her daughter Ellie will receive what I promised them, a 10 times salary increase and a home in the neighborhood of their choice. What you saw was real, and I believe it is time to recognize talent, wherever it may come from." One journalist called out, "Do you regret mocking her?" Richard hesitated for a moment. "It was not my finest moment. But because of that moment, I came to know an extraordinary woman, and a little girl, who may very well change the world." That single phrase spread everywhere, replayed in headlines and broadcasts across the country. Laura watched the press conference on television. She said nothing, only lowered the volume and pulled Ellie into her arms. "What is happening, Mom?" Ellie asked softly. "It looks like this time it is really going to happen." Ellie's face lit up with a smile. "Are we going to have a house?" Laura did not answer. She simply stroked her daughter's hair. But inside her, emotions tangled together: joy, pride, fear, and a lingering doubt. She knew nothing in life ever came without a price. And if so many people were watching them now, it could only mean one thing: something much bigger had just begun. Before she became known as the mother of the genius girl, Laura Martinez had been invisible, just another woman among many. She walked the company halls unnoticed, cleaning floors quietly, wiping desks while meetings went on behind closed doors, avoiding eye contact with those in suits and ties. No one ever asked what Laura did after work, what she had once studied, or if she had ever dreamed of a life beyond carrying trash bags. But she had. Laura was born in a poor neighborhood, in a modest home with bare, unpainted walls. The youngest of 3 children, she grew up with little, yet her mother taught her to read using old newspapers collected from the corner stand. By the age of 5, Laura was already reading storybooks she borrowed from school. She was quiet, reserved, and always had her head buried in a book. She finished high school with good grades and, despite the lack of money, managed to enter the university. She enrolled in Hispanic literature. Sometimes she did not even have subway fare, but she found ways. She sold candy outside the campus, translated assignments, babysat for hours. It did not matter. She was in love with words. Her dream was to write, to teach, to dedicate her life to education. Then, everything changed during her 3rd semester. She met a man at a university party. His name was Stephen. He had a scruffy beard, spoke sweetly, and seemed to know about books, or at least pretended to. They went out a couple of times. He was charming, different. Laura had never had a boyfriend before. And when, for the first time, she felt truly seen and cared for, she let her guard down. A month after she told Stephen she was pregnant, he disappeared. He stopped answering her calls, moved out of his apartment, vanished. No one saw him again. Laura looked for help, but her family could not support her. Her mother was already ill, and her brothers were struggling with their own lives. With her pregnancy advancing and no money, she dropped out of university. She found a job as a waitress at a fast food restaurant. Sometimes she worked double shifts, barely slept, ate poorly, and tried to save every coin she could to prepare for her baby's arrival. No one gave her anything for free. Everything she bought was second-hand. A crib missing one rail, a stroller with a loose wheel, baby clothes passed down from neighborhood mothers. When Ellie was born, Laura was just 21. She welcomed her daughter into a tiny room with a single window that would not close properly. It was a rainy dawn. The hospital was overcrowded, and she could not stay more than a day. She left on foot, carrying her newborn wrapped in a borrowed blanket. She had no partner, no diploma, no savings. But she did have something many people never find: an iron will. During those first years, she raised Ellie alone. She worked night shifts cleaning offices and tried to rest during the day while her baby slept. It was exhausting, but Laura never complained. Instead of turning on cartoons, Laura read stories to her daughter in a soft voice, even when her eyelids were heavy with exhaustion. By the time Ellie turned 3, Laura had built a small library at home. Children's storybooks, magazines, encyclopedias, even old volumes she rescued from the trash at work. Ellie taught herself to read at 5. By 6, she was devouring entire books. Not fairy tales or animal stories. She loved history, classic literature, and tales from faraway countries. She was fascinated by maps, languages, and strange-sounding names. Laura quickly realized there was something extraordinary about her daughter, something she had never seen in any other child. But she kept it to herself, afraid no one would believe her. After all, who cared what a cleaning lady thought? So she worked with what little she had. She downloaded language audio files onto her old cell phone, played French songs while braiding Ellie's hair, and turned their evenings into imaginary trips around the world. Laura herself spoke only Spanish and basic English, but she researched as much as she could. With no Wi-Fi at home, she used open networks in the neighborhood to download materials, then brought them back. Instead of trendy toys, she bought Ellie dictionaries, notebooks, and second-hand books, and Ellie loved them. Her favorite game was learning new words and repeating them out loud, copying the accent. Laura never forced her. She simply watched, encouraged, and provided what she could. By the time Ellie turned 7, Laura had lost faith in the public education system. She knew the schools could not keep up with her daughter. She asked teachers for extra assignments and advanced books. Some ignored her. Others admitted they did not know how to help. One principal even told her not to fill the girl's head with strange ideas. That day, Laura went home in tears. From then on, she decided to teach Ellie herself, however she could, with whatever she had. Every night, they read together. They searched for educational channels, sometimes printing worksheets at Laura's job. Many nights they stayed up late solving logic problems. Ellie was like a sponge, absorbing everything. Laura never sought fame. All she wanted was to give her daughter the tools to be free. She knew that if she herself could not succeed because of lack of opportunity, Ellie still could. At work, no one knew any of this. To them, she was just the quiet cleaning lady who always greeted politely and never bothered anyone. But once she walked through the door of her tiny apartment, she became a teacher, a guide, a friend, and a mother. Laura was not perfect. Sometimes she grew frustrated. Sometimes she felt unbearably alone. Having no one to share her daughter's gift with often made her feel as if she lived in another world. Yet every time she watched Ellie discover something new, it made everything worthwhile. And now, after so many years of invisible sacrifice, the whole world was talking about them, but Laura refused to be swept away by it. She knew attention could be fleeting. She knew that the same people who applauded you one day could turn their backs the next. One thing, however, was certain. She would never let anyone exploit her daughter. Not fame, not money, not even a millionaire in a suit. That hidden past no one knew about. That was Laura's engine, the fuel behind her determination. And though she never said it out loud, inside she felt something she had not felt in years: pride. Richard Carter, meanwhile, had never struggled to control a situation. Since he sold his first tech company at 25, he had mastered the art of dominating every room. In business, he knew, the one who controlled the atmosphere always won. And he always won, at board meetings, in interviews, in negotiations. He knew exactly what to say, how to stand, what tone to use to make people listen. His presence intimidated, and he liked that. That was why what had happened with Laura and Ellie haunted him. Days had passed since he had stood before the cameras and kept his promise. He had done it because he had no choice, not because he truly wanted to. Richard was not the kind of man who bent easily, especially not for someone who, in his mind, did not even belong in that boardroom. It was an accident, he kept telling himself, a misunderstanding. He had no idea what that little girl was capable of. Yet something about it gnawed at him. It was a strange mix of shame and curiosity. The office no longer felt the same. When he walked through the halls, some employees dropped their eyes, others smiled in a peculiar way, as if they knew something he did not. His investors, once quick to laugh at his jokes, were now distant, colder. They did not say it out loud, but he knew. They were judging him, and through it all, one image remained stuck in his mind. The girl. The way she had looked at him when she declared she spoke 9 languages. The confidence in her voice. That sharp, awake mind. He had met adults with master's degrees who could not express themselves that way. And her mother, Laura, an ordinary woman in simple clothes, her hair tied back as if she were always in a hurry, but carrying an attitude that did not match that of just another employee. She had not flinched. She had not apologized. She had not looked at him as though he were above her. She had faced him, not by shouting, not by disrespecting him, but with a quiet firmness rarely seen. That image replayed in Richard's mind every night. He did not know why, but he began to dig deeper. He requested her employment file. It showed that Laura had been working for the cleaning service for 4 years. Never absent, never a complaint. Not a single report against her. Always on time, always silent, almost invisible. But what surprised him most was what he found online. An old photo, more than 10 years back, tagged in a forgotten university post. A blurry image from the university. Yet there she was, Laura, younger, holding books in her arms, with a smile far brighter than the one he knew now. Something stirred inside Richard. He did not say it out loud, but he felt foolish, proud, wounded, as if someone had pulled him down from his throne, without asking permission. Of course, Regina was the first to notice the change in him. "Since when do you take an interest in cleaning staff?" she asked one day, barging in without knocking. "As always, I do not," Richard replied flatly, not lifting his eyes from the monitor. "Liar." I saw the way you looked at her the other day when she came to sign the new contract." Richard stayed silent. Regina crossed her arms, leaned against the edge of his desk, and studied him with that mix of mockery and jealousy only she could pull off. "Do not tell me the story of the brave mother and the child prodigy actually touched you. How sweet!" "Enough, Regina." "No, not enough. Ever since that video, you have been different, quieter." "What is wrong, Richard? Do not like the fact that someone exposed you?" Richard finally looked at her. His eyes no longer carried the arrogance they once did. Instead, they were tired, irritated, and just a little lost. "They did not expose me. They beat me. That is different." Regina blinked, startled by his honesty. "You? The great Richard Carter, admitting defeat?" "It is not defeat, Regina. I just did not expect it to be true." She circled the office slowly, like a predator searching for weakness. "What you did not expect," she said sharply, "was that the entire country would side with a woman holding a mop and a little girl with braids. That stung you more than the humiliation, did it not?" Richard did not respond. He knew Regina was right. What weighed on him most was not the criticism, nor the humiliation. It was the fact that for the first time in his life, he had felt small. Not because someone insulted him, but because deep down, that little girl had reminded him of something money could never buy. And that disarmed him completely. The next morning, he called a meeting with Human Resources. "I want everything you can find about Laura Martinez, her background, her studies, her schedule, whatever you can. But quietly. Do not bother her." The head of HR gave him a puzzled look. "Is there a problem with her?" None at all. I just want to know if she has other skills." "For what?" "I am thinking about offering her another kind of job. Something more fitting to her abilities." The words lingered in the air. Even Richard was not sure why he said them. Guilt? Admiration? A need to repair what he had broken? He did not know. He only knew he could not leave things as if nothing had happened. Days later, he saw her in the elevator. Laura was stepping out, holding a folder, her face serious. Richard was stepping in, dressed in his usual black suit. They crossed paths. "Laura," he called before she walked away. She stopped, turned, and looked at him with her usual calm. "Yes?" "I want to talk to you. 5 minutes." Laura hesitated, then finally nodded and followed him to his office. Sitting across from him, she did not seem nervous. She showed no fear, no resentment, but no warmth either. Only attention. Richard cleared his throat. "I have been thinking. What happened? It opened my eyes. Not just because of your daughter, who is extraordinary, but because of you." She frowned, not understanding. "I am not someone who usually apologizes," he admitted, "but I think you deserve one." Laura inhaled deeply. "Thank you. I know you were not expecting it." "No," she said flatly, "but thank you." An uncomfortable silence followed. "I also wanted to ask if you would be interested in another position here. Not as cleaning staff. Something different. Something where you could contribute more." Laura studied him with suspicion. "Why?" "Because I think you are wasting your talent. And because I have realized you are not who everyone assumed you were." She thought for a moment, then asked quietly, "And are you?" The question left him speechless. Laura stood, picked up her folder. "Thanks for the offer. I will think about it. But if I do it, it will not be for you. It will be for my daughter." And with that, she walked out, leaving him alone with his silence. Richard sat there, feeling something he had not felt in a very long time. Respect. not for himself, but for her. And in his world, that was entirely new. Laura, meanwhile, had not slept well since the incident in the boardroom. Not out of fear or regret, but because everything around her had changed so quickly she could barely process it. Her phone never stopped ringing. Every day brought a new interview request, a scholarship offer, a call from someone wanting to tell her story. People who had never cared about her before now approached with exaggerated smiles. Neighbors congratulated her. Others looked at her strangely, as if she had suddenly become wealthy overnight. Ellie, for her part, remained exactly the same. Ellie still played with her language notebook, ate bread with jam in the afternoons, and lit up every time she learned a new word. But Laura could already feel it. They were no longer alone. Too many eyes were on them now, and not all with good intentions. It was a Thursday afternoon, just after Laura finished her shift, when she received a direct call from the company's central office. A woman's firm voice told her that Mr. Richard Carter expected her in his office at 6 p.m. for a formal proposal. Laura did not ask questions. She was not naive. She already knew Richard was not the type to extend favors out of pure kindness. She arrived on time. She did not dress up too much, just a clean blouse, her hair tied back neatly, and a dab of the cheap perfume she saved for important occasions. As she walked through the lobby, the receptionists greeted her differently this time, more respectful, almost careful. They knew. Everyone knew. She rode the elevator in silence. When the doors opened on the top floor, Regina was already waiting, standing by the executive reception desk in a spotless white dress, her expression sharp with suspicion. "So, you are Laura," Regina said without introducing herself, her voice laced with disdain, as though she needed to remind Laura who truly belonged there. "Yes, I am Laura," she replied evenly, refusing to be intimidated. "I did not think a cleaning lady would have time for important meetings. And I did not think offices this expensive would reek of so much poison," Laura shot back. Regina gave a cold smile with no trace of warmth. "Good. You are learning fast. Do not take too long. He is waiting." She pointed toward the glass door. Laura walked in without looking back. The moment the door closed, she felt the change in the air. This was another world. Luxury offices, massive windows with a skyline view, leather chairs, fresh coffee steaming on the table. And Richard, standing by the window as if carefully staged for effect. "Thank you for coming," he said without turning. "You called me," Laura replied. "You are right," he admitted, finally turning around. "Do you mind if we drop the formalities?" Laura shrugged. "That depends." He gestured toward the chair in front of his desk. She sat without a word, and he followed. "I have been thinking about what you told me the other day, that if you accepted anything, it would only be for your daughter, and that has not changed. I understand. Which is why, today, I want to offer you something serious. This is not charity. This is not a prize. It is an opportunity." Laura met his gaze steadily, waiting. "There is an opening in business development, an administrative position. It involves managing documents, organizing digital files, assisting with logistics, and some writing. The salary is 6 times what you earn now. Office hours, full benefits, and real potential for growth." Laura raised her eyebrows, surprised, though her face remained calm. "Why me?" "Because I have seen that you know more than you let on," Richard replied. "Because you taught your daughter what prestigious schools never could. And because I need people in this company who think differently." "And it is not because the whole world saw you humiliated online?" Laura pressed. Richard met her gaze, serious. He was not offended. If anything, he seemed almost relieved by her bluntness. "Maybe. But I am not here to protect my pride. I am here because if you achieved so much with so little, I want to see what you could do with real tools." Laura crossed her arms. "And what else does this offer include?" "Ellie will receive a full scholarship at the International Institute of Talents. Languages, technology, access to advanced materials, private transportation, daily meals, and a tutor to guide her through it all. I have already spoken to the director. All that is missing is your signature." For the first time, Laura felt something she could not name. It was not excitement, nor distrust. It was vertigo. Everything was too much, too good. And when something seems too good, it usually hides a trap. "What is the catch?" she asked. Richard smiled faintly. "There is no catch. But I understand your doubt. I only want you to see this as a step forward. If you do not like it later, you are free to leave. You lose nothing by trying." Laura went quiet. She took a deep breath, and memories collided in her mind. Years of scrubbing bathrooms, sleepless nights, Ellie's endless questions she had not been able to answer. Her daughter deserved more, and so did she. "Fine," Laura said at last. "I accept, but on one condition." Richard raised his eyes, intrigued. "And what is that?" "I do not want you to see this as a favor you did me. And I do not want you thinking I owe you anything. I will work. I will earn every dollar." "That is clear," Richard said without hesitation. They both stood. They shook hands. No speeches, no forced gratitude, no hollow smiles. Just respect. When Laura walked out, Regina was still there, watching. But this time she did not speak. She only stared as Laura passed, her expression stripped of mockery. What replaced it was far more dangerous, a sharp mix of jealousy and rage. That night, Laura told Ellie everything. The little girl did not jump or scream. She only widened her eyes in quiet surprise. "And I am going to a new school?" "Yes," Laura said softly. "A place where there are children like you, kids who learn fast, who want to know more." "And you are going to work in an office?" "Yes, sweetheart. No more mop and bucket." Ellie threw her arms around her mother, and for the first time in a long time, Laura cried. Not from sadness, not from frustration. She cried because, after so many years of fighting unseen, it finally felt as though someone had opened a door, and this time she was not going to let it close. The first day of Laura's new life began at 6 sharp. She woke before the alarm rang. She had not slept much, but not from insomnia. It was that restless energy you feel when something big is about to happen. The kind of day when you know your life is about to change, even if you do not yet know how. The first thing she saw when she opened her eyes was Ellie, asleep beside her, clutching a dictionary. She had dozed off reading it. Laura rose carefully, not wanting to wake her, and went straight to the kitchen to boil water. As she prepared coffee, her thoughts swirled. She had never used an office system before. She did not know how to work spreadsheets, digital platforms, or cloud files. But she would learn, even if it meant sleepless nights, even if her hands shook every time she touched a computer. By 7, Ellie was ready. She wore a freshly ironed new uniform, carried a rolling backpack, her braids perfectly tied, and her eyes shining with excitement. "Do I look okay, Mom?" "You look beautiful." They boarded the white van sent by the school, its logo emblazoned on the side. The driver greeted Ellie as if he already knew her. Inside, 2 fair-haired children were seated neatly, dressed impeccably, their backpacks looking like something from a catalog. Ellie smiled at them. "Hi, are you going to the International Institute too?" The children glanced sideways, barely nodding. One pulled out a tablet and pretended to be busy. Laura noticed the reaction, but said nothing. She simply placed her hand gently on her daughter's back. The ride took half an hour. The school stood in an exclusive part of the city, surrounded by modern homes and flower-lined gardens. The gate opened automatically, towering walls enclosing the grounds. Ellie stepped out without fear, but Laura's stomach tightened. She watched as her daughter walked into the building, greeted by a woman with a staff badge, holding a clipboard and offering a professional smile. "Do not worry, Mom." Ellie blew her a kiss from the entrance. "I will be fine." Laura only nodded. After leaving Ellie at her new school, Laura headed straight to her own first day. For the first time, she walked through the company doors without her cleaning uniform. Instead, she wore a light blue blouse, borrowed formal pants, and carried a folder under her arm. She felt strange, as though she were walking in someone else's shoes. At the reception, several employees glanced at her. Some recognized her immediately, others simply assumed she was a new hire. She made her way to the third floor, where the administrative offices were located. A woman in her mid-40s with short hair and thick glasses greeted her. "You must be Laura, right?" "Yes, nice to meet you." "I am Miriam, your supervisor. Let me explain how things work around here." Miriam's tone was kind yet professional. She showed Laura her desk, her new computer login, the systems they used, the basic passwords. She handed her an agenda, an instruction manual, and a hot cup of coffee. "If you get stuck, just ask. Nobody is born knowing how to do this." Laura exhaled, relieved. She spent the entire morning learning. The keyboard felt awkward at first. Her fingers stumbled. She hit the wrong keys, but her memory was sharp. She wrote everything down in a small notebook and slowly began to grasp the tasks. Filing documents, scheduling appointments, sending emails, uploading reports. New things, yes, but not impossible. What was harder was the atmosphere. Every time someone passed by, she felt the weight of whispers. "That is the cleaning lady, is it not?" a young woman with glasses murmured to another. A man in a red tie stared at her as if searching for cracks in her facade. And of course, Regina did not take long to appear. She swept into the department like it was her own stage, heels clicking, fitted dress, sharp smile. She walked straight to Laura's desk. "Well," Regina said smoothly, "how is your first day on this new step-up?" Laura met her gaze calmly. "Learning, like everyone does when they are starting." Regina let out a nasal laugh. "Good. Just make sure you do not make mistakes. Here, errors are not swept away. They show." And just like that, Regina walked away. No dramatic pause, no lingering words. Laura could feel the stares around her, but she refused to let them sink in. She focused on her screen, her fingers steady on the keyboard. She was not going to let anyone make her feel small. Not this time. Not ever again. That afternoon, Ellie returned in the white van, her head bursting with excitement. "Mom, my classroom has electronic boards, and the library looks like a giant bookstore. They let me introduce myself in 3 different languages, and the teacher said she had never seen anything like it. Did you know they even have an artificial intelligence lab? And they use virtual reality to teach history." Laura listened with a smile as she stirred rice on the stove. "And the kids? Did you get along with them?" Ellie shrugged. "Kind of. Some asked if you were famous. One kid said I do not look like I belong there, but I do not care. The teacher was nice. She even gave me a Russian book I have never seen before." A lump rose in Laura's throat. She knew it would not all be easy, but she also knew her daughter had something rare: clarity. Just be yourself, Ellie. You do not need to look like anyone else. What matters is what you carry here. She gently tapped her daughter's forehead. Ellie smiled, then darted off to her room, clutching her new book to her chest. That night, as they washed dishes together, Laura's phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Do not trust everyone. There are people who want to see you fall." She read it 3 times. She did not reply. She stayed silent, switched off the phone, and went back to scrubbing a plate, as if nothing had happened. Because if life had taught her one thing, it was this: distrust is not shouted. It is stored away, to be used when needed. Regina had always been that kind of woman, someone who never raised her voice, but pulled strings with elegance, someone who smiled with her lips, but never with her eyes. She was good at what she did. Years of working with Richard had given her knowledge of every crack in the company's structure, and even more importantly, knowledge of people. She knew who spoke out of fear, who stayed quiet out of convenience, and who needed to fall for her to climb higher. And now, Laura was a threat. She never said it aloud, but it was written in every gesture. The way she stretched Laura's name with disdain, the sly remarks she let slip in the hallways, just enough to plant doubt without appearing direct. "They say she never finished university, right?" Regina whispered to one of the assistants while pretending to stir sugar into her coffee in the common room. "I do not think so," the other replied, visibly uncomfortable. "Strange, is it not?" Regina said smoothly. "That someone without a degree has access to sensitive company information." She left the room with her usual elegant stride, lips curved in a half-smile. That was only the beginning. Within a week, 3 employees from different departments began receiving anonymous emails. Each contained a single link. The links all led to the same place: a newly created social media account. No name, no photo, just one post. It was an old picture, clearly a grainy screenshot. Laura, years younger, standing at a university protest with a megaphone in hand, surrounded by students carrying banners. The caption read, "This is the image the company wants to project." The message was obvious. It painted her as a troublemaker, a rebel, a threat in a corporate environment. The kind of person who, according to some, belonged with a broom in her hand, not at a desk. One HR officer took the image straight to their superior. "What do we do with this?" "Nothing," the director replied firmly. "There is no violation here. It is her past. It has nothing to do with her current work." But Regina was not done. The very next day, during a board meeting, she dropped her words like poison disguised as casual observation. "Has anyone reviewed the backgrounds of all the new employees lately? We have had a lot of movement, and I would hate for someone unstable to slip through the cracks." Richard was present. He glanced sideways at her but said nothing. He was not a fool. He knew exactly who she meant. And then came the second strike. One afternoon, Laura received a notification in her inbox. She was summoned to a task review meeting due to inconsistencies in the department's documentation. On paper, it sounded routine. But the moment she stepped into the boardroom, where 3 members of internal HR awaited her, she knew it was something else entirely. "We would like to ask you about these files," one of them said, sliding a stack of papers across the table. "There are duplicated documents, dates that do not match, and scanned signatures instead of originals." Laura took the pages, skimmed through them, and quickly recognized her work. But some details, those mismatched entries, she had never touched. "Yes, I uploaded this information," she said calmly. "But this is how the files were given to me. I only organized them." "And who provided them to you?" "Miss Norma, from the 6th floor. One of the women nodded, jotting it down. Do not worry. This is not an accusation. We are just reviewing. Although, as you know, company policy states that any alteration of documents is grounds for investigation. Laura said nothing, not because she had no words, but because she already understood where this was coming from. She left the meeting with her heart pounding. Dirty games were not new to her. What hurt was not the trick itself. It was knowing people would rather destroy than give someone a chance. The next morning, she found an unmarked envelope on her desk. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The easy promotion has its price. Watch what you do. No signature. Just that line. Laura inhaled deeply. She was not going to run. She was not going to quit. She knew her worth. But she also understood something important. She was no longer playing on even ground. Richard never got sick. Not even a cold. He always said illness was for those who did not take care of themselves. He slept little, ate when he could, and lived under constant stress. But his body always endured. Until it did not. It began with a dull ache in his back. Then came the dizziness. Soon after, a dry cough that kept him awake at night. The company doctor told Richard it was nothing but exhaustion, that he simply needed rest. Richard laughed bitterly. Rest? And let them steal the company from me while I sleep? But that same week, during a board meeting, his hands trembled, his voice failed, his vision blurred. He collapsed into his own chair, pale as paper. They had to rush him to the hospital. The diagnosis was clear: severe pneumonia with complications, a weakened immune system, chronic stress, uncontrolled high blood pressure. The doctor did not sugarcoat it. Either you slow down, or your body will do it for you. And it already has. Richard was admitted and left alone in a silent white hospital room. No noise, no emails, no meetings, nothing. News traveled fast through the company. Some pretended to be concerned, while others seized the moment to move their pieces. And of course, Regina was the first to react. I am ready to step in while Richard recovers, she told the board. I already know the operations. I do not want the company to stall because of this. No one said no. No one asked further questions. And just like that, Regina sat in the boss's chair, while Richard could barely sit up in his hospital bed without feeling dizzy. During those first days, Richard waited for calls, visits, some sign from his partners. None came, not even from his family. His father lived far away, with whom he had not spoken in years. His brother was in Canada. Most of his friends only spoke to him when there was business to gain. Now that he was out of the game, they simply vanished. He had money, plenty of it. But money did not warm the room, did not bring him water, did not help him walk to the bathroom without his legs shaking. One night, as he struggled to fall asleep, he felt something pressing deep inside his chest. It was not his chest. It was something deeper, like an old sadness he had carried for years. For the first time, Richard truly felt alone. And then, as if fate knew he could bear no more, he heard the door open. It was Ellie. She walked in with small but steady steps, a backpack on her shoulders, and a gentle smile on her face. Hi, Richard. He looked at her in surprise. What are you doing here? I came to be with you. Behind her came Laura, holding a cloth bag in one hand and a thermos in the other. Good evening, she said softly. Richard tried to sit up but coughed. Laura set her things on a chair and walked to his bedside. Who told you? He asked. Your assistant, Laura explained. I saw him crying in the hallway at the office. I asked, and he told me everything. Ellie pulled out a couple of books from her backpack and held them up. I brought you reading material, in 3 languages, so you will not get bored. Richard gave a weak but genuine smile. "I cannot believe you are here." "I can," Laura said, as she poured him some hot tea. "And the company?" Richard asked, sighing. "Regina has already taken over everything, has she not?" Laura said nothing, but her silence was enough. That night, they stayed with him. Laura sat in the chair beside the bed, while Ellie curled up on the couch with a blanket. Richard drifted in and out of sleep. Each time he opened his eyes, he saw Laura reading to her daughter, Ellie drawing maps in her notebook, or simply staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, after a life surrounded by luxury, he felt truly accompanied. By the third day, his fever had dropped. The cough was not as harsh anymore. The doctor came in and said with a faint smile, "You are responding well to treatment. Stay surrounded by good things. That helps more than any medicine." Meanwhile, Regina was starting to feel something slipping from her grasp. She did not like the idea of Richard getting better. She liked even less that Laura was by his side. "That woman is sticking her nose where it does not belong," she muttered to Ethan, her accomplice. "What are we going to do?" he asked. "Wait for the perfect moment. When Richard comes back, he will not find the company the way he left it, and she will not have a place to sit anywhere." But Regina did not realize that Richard no longer thought the way he once did. The first day Richard returned to the office, no one was expecting him. He did not announce it, did not post anything, did not send a single email. He simply arrived, walking down the hallway as he used to, but this time, not with his eyes fixed ahead. He looked at every person, one by one, as if truly seeing them for the first time. He was dressed simply: white shirt, jeans, no tie. He carried no briefcase, no bodyguards, no assistants rushing behind him. Just himself, walking with a firm yet calm step. When he reached the executive floor, he noticed some offices had changed, while others remained the same. There were new faces, people he did not recognize. At the far end, in a conference room, he saw Regina giving a presentation to investors. She caught sight of him from the corner of her eye, hesitated for a fraction of a second, then pretended nothing had happened. Richard did not enter, did not make a scene. He simply kept walking to his office, closed the door, and turned on his computer. That day, he spoke to no one, only requested 3 things from the legal team: a complete list of all transactions signed by Regina over the last 2 months, a detailed report of all employees hired during his absence, access to all archived internal security recordings. While they prepared the materials, he went down to the cafeteria. There was Laura, sitting alone at a table, eating rice with vegetables she had brought from home. Beside her was a folder and her phone on silent mode. Richard walked up quietly. "Mind if I sit?" Laura looked up, surprised. "You are back already?" "Today," he replied, sitting across from her. He pulled a napkin from the center of the table and stayed silent for a few seconds. "How did it feel, coming back?" she asked, her tone different. "Like, this place is not the same. Or maybe, like, I am not the same anymore." Laura held his gaze. "And you are not." "No," Richard admitted. "I am not. The illness took a lot from me, but it also cleared my vision. And now? What are you going to do?" Richard gave a faint smile. "Change everything, starting with what is around me." And he meant it. That very day, he called for a general assembly, not of executives, but of employees. He invited every department, from janitorial to engineering, from sales to maintenance. The main conference hall filled as it had never before. Richard entered without a presenter, without protocol, without background music. "I want to speak as one of you," he began. "Weeks ago, I was lying in a hospital bed, And during that time I saw what many of you see every single day: injustice, abuse, indifference. But I also saw people who owed me nothing, yet stood by me, valuable people, people without high titles, who carry the weight of this company without anyone noticing. Today, that changes. We are going to clean up what is rotten, remove those who betrayed trust, and honor the ones who give more than they receive. From now on, this will not just be a company. It will be a place where no one is worth less because of how they dress or where they come from. The room fell silent. Some looked at him in disbelief, others with excitement. Laura stood at the back. She did not seek attention, but she knew those words were meant for her too. That same week, Richard convened the board. He showed the reports, presented the evidence: misused funds, falsified signatures, suspicious transactions. All of it pointed directly at Regina. She tried to defend herself. "And what do you know about what I did?" "You were in bed. You had no idea what was happening." "I kept this company standing," Regina insisted. "You kept it for yourself," Richard replied firmly. "Not for everyone." The discussion was brief, but it was enough. Days later, Regina was removed from her position. No scandal, no press, just an internal agreement, a quiet exit, and a clear warning: do not come back. With her departure, a few loyal employees also fell. Ethan was fired after his role in manipulating documents was confirmed. Others resigned out of fear. The atmosphere inside the company began to shift, to shake loose. But the most important change came after. Richard was no longer the same kind of leader. He changed the way he spoke, the way he listened, the way he approached people. He introduced new programs, internal scholarships, emotional support counseling for staff, a fairer cafeteria, even flexible schedules for single mothers. And he did not do it alone. He appointed Laura as Director of Inclusion and Development Projects, a new position created specifically for her. Not as a reward, but as an investment. On her first day in the new office, Laura did not say a word. She simply sat down, closed her eyes for a moment, and breathed. She had made it this far. Not by luck, not by fame, not because someone pulled strings for her, but because she deserved it. Those who once mocked her now respected her. Those who ignored her now greeted her with nervous smiles. And those who thought she was invisible finally understood. Not only was Laura here, but she was part of the company's future. Months had passed since everything changed. Laura walked out of the company building, a folder pressed to her chest, and a calm look in her eyes. The meeting had been productive. She finally felt like part of the new team. Some employees who had barely acknowledged her before now sought her advice. She climbed into her modest car and turned on the radio. At home, Ellie was waiting with hot soup she had learned to cook from a Japanese video. Everything seemed fine until her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She did not answer. The phone buzzed again. The same number. She ignored it once more, but when she reached home, with her keys still in hand, she froze. The phone buzzed again. An unknown number. But this time, instead of a voice, a message appeared across the screen. International Agency for Exceptional Talent. Urgent contact. Laura frowned, unsure if it was some cruel prank. Richard leaned closer, reading over her shoulder. "An agency? That sounds serious," he said cautiously. That afternoon, they sat at the table together and opened the message. The words were formal, detailed, unsettling in their precision. Ellie Martinez has been identified as part of an international program to evaluate children with extraordinary abilities. Records indicate unusual fluency in multiple languages at an early age. suggesting a rare but benign genetic mutation. Such mutations have been known to enhance cognitive processing, particularly in linguistic domains. We call it a gift, though it is extremely rare. Laura felt the ground sway beneath her. A genetic mutation. The phrase clung to her chest like a weight. Not an illness, not something dangerous, but a change in her daughter's very nature. A gift that no one had planned, something written into her from the start. Richard reached for Laura's hand, steady and warm. "This is enormous," he whispered. "Yes," she answered, her voice breaking. "Enormous and terrifying." That night, they all crowded together in Ellie's bed. Richard tucked the blanket carefully around her. Laura sat close, and for a long moment there was only silence, the kind that carries too many thoughts. Ellie finally broke it. "Are you listening to me?" she asked softly, her eyes wide. "Of course," Laura said. "What are you talking about?" Laura exchanged a glance with Richard, then answered carefully. "About something that makes you unique." "A mutation?" the girl pressed. "Something like that," Richard said, forcing a lightness into his voice. "But think of it as a gift. A gift you are still discovering." Ellie covered her eyes with her small hands, as if she could hide from the weight of the word. "I do not want to be a gift," she whispered. "I just want to be me. And you." Her gaze clung to Laura. Laura pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "And that is exactly what you are. The most real thing in this world." The next morning, they did not have to wait long. Representatives from the agency arrived, not with flashing lights or spectacle, but with quiet professionalism. They carried folders, credentials, and faces that tried to look reassuring. The representatives spoke to all three of them. Ellie listened with a mix of suspicion and curiosity, her small hands gripping her notebook tightly. They showed medical reports, cognitive studies, scans and charts that seemed more suited for scientists than for a child. They explained that her rare genetic mutation could become something of great importance to science, to education, to the study of languages, and the human brain itself. But then came the words that mattered most. It is the family's choice, whether to expose this gift to the world or protect her childhood. Laura felt her heartbeat pounding louder than their voices. She turned to her daughter. "Ellie, what do you want?" The little girl's eyes glistened, her lips trembling. She swallowed, but no tears fell. "I want to learn," she whispered, "but I also want to play. I want to keep being just me." That moment froze everything. No agency, no science, no great opportunity could outweigh the voice of one brave child. Laura straightened her shoulders, her decision clear. "Then there will be no presentations, no stage, no spotlight. You have our respect, but you also have our boundary. When Ellie is ready, if she is ever ready, you will know where to find us. Until then, she stays a child." The representative nodded with quiet respect. "As you decide." When they left, silence filled the apartment. Laura and Richard sat together in the dark, side by side. "You know what this means, do you not?" Laura said softly. "That our daughter carries something unimaginable inside her," Richard answered. He looked at her with a kind of awe. "And that you, without expensive books or special schools, nurtured it with nothing more than patience and love." Laura pressed her forehead against his shoulder, breathing shakily. "And that we can keep being a family." Richard wrapped his arms around her. "Not just a family. We already are one." They held each other in the stillness of night, certain that nothing would ever be the same. The next day, Ellie went to the park with her notebook. She sat on the grass, speaking softly to herself in 3 different languages as the wind played with her hair. From a distance, Laura and Richard watched, saying nothing. They did not need to. They knew, whatever happened next, wherever life carried them, home would always be here. Not in the grandeur of titles or the weight of the world's expectations, but in something far simpler. A family. A child who was no longer a mystery. A truth that needed no further explanation. And that was everything.